Welcome back to the Creation Matters podcast, the podcast where we use science to showcase the existence of a creator and to convey the message of the gospel. I am your host, Taylor Schroeder, and with me today I have Ashley Coulter as my co-host. How are you doing today, Ashley?
Very good. Good to be back.
Yes, so exciting to be here.
Yeah, episode number 2.
Yep. So today we were thinking of telling you guys more about ourselves and a little bit how we got to this moment in time right now. So,
yes.
Would you like to start, Ashley?
Oh, sure. Well, I am from a large family of 10 kids. I'm the second oldest. I have been volunteering at the Creation Experience Museum for a little over a year now with 3 of my sisters. And we've been in training for becoming tour guides and also helping in the bookstore. And that's been really exciting, and somehow they put me on here. So I really enjoy riding horses, going hunting and fishing, outdoor stuff, hiking, all that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
How about you, Taylor?
Yeah, me? Excuse me. I'm also from a pretty... It's a decently large family compared to, all the families you see today. But I'm the oldest of 7, and we live on a farm. I love the cows, the pigs, and all the chickens, and, of course, the dogs and the cats. In my personal time, I love writing and reading, and I became affiliated with the Creation Experience Museum here in Branson just last year, actually, after visiting in the summer, and I'm really happy to be part of the team. So
we're glad. We're so happy to have you. You've been such a blessing.
So exciting.
But also, today, we're going to just jump right into what we have. We're excited for this next episode. We've got a very special guest in the studio with us today. His name is Drake Ford, and he has been also on staff at the museum for 3 years now, I believe.
I think this is my 4th year, actually.
4th year. Wow. He's a senior. Good job. No, we are so excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us, Drake. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, you've been in the creation ministry for 4 years now. How did that start?
So it started as a homeschool kid. Mom wanted me to go to the Creation Museum as my science day to learn about science.
Yeah.
And everybody there, I guess they just trying to be a tour guide without maybe knowing it. And so next thing I know, I'm starting to give tours, and 4 years later, I'm still there.
Wow.
Awesome.
That is awesome.
So I'm the middle kid out of 7 kids in my family. And I enjoy pretty much all sports. Anything adventurous and dangerous, you'll find me doing it probably.
Yes. You can't see it now, but Drake actually is on crutches right now because of a ultimate frisbee game gone wrong. So
it was a good game.
We're glad he was willing to come today.
Yes. And speaking of adventurous, we brought Drake on the podcast today to just simply share a little bit about his experience going on fossil digs.
Yes, we got to have our president, Curtis Baker, on for the first episode, and he was talking about fossils and geology and how that all fits in with the Bible and how we can trust God's word. And we wanted to have Drake on because, I know for me, I would love to go on a fossil dig, but I've got no idea what that looks like. So we have brought Drake in to give us some good stories. He's a great storyteller, and so we're just gonna hear from Drake on some fossil digs and things, because he's been on a lot of them, and he's been out there doing the hardcore work. So for starters, I'll just start us off. How did you hear about these fossil digs that you've been on, and what got you started with even wanting to go?
So the very first fossil dig I ever went on, I think Curtis, the president, had told me that there's going to be a fossil dig in Kansas. We're going to go out, and basically we're going to look at bones in the ground for like a week. And to be honest, at first I was like, that doesn't seem very appealing to me. That sounds really boring, actually.
Yeah.
And then he said, well, David Reeves is actually going to be the host. He's going to be leading it. I was like, okay, well, I always thought it'd be cool to meet David and get to work with him. So I was like, hey, I'll go. And working on fossils is like a germ. Once it gets on you, you won't stop. So just know that if you ever go fossil digging, once you do it once you touch the first fossil in the dirt, you're never going to stop. So that's my very first.
It's one way to put it.
I didn't want to, but once I met David, I got to work with him in the field, then things changed, and I love it now.
Very cool.
Have you worked with David several times since then, or is that the only time?
So I've been on 2 digs with him, both in Kansas. That's the only 2 digs I've ever been with him on.
Okay.
I've been on three digs.
All right.
3 days.
Cool.
2 in Kansas. And
2
then
in Kansas and 1 in Montana.
1 in Montana, yes.
Yes.
That Montana one was a pretty big one for our team, I know, at the Creation Museum here in Branson.
Yes. Montana, we were actually getting to work with some people on a famous fossil, or will be more famous once they get it out, an Edmontosaurus. Her name is Ruth, and I honestly don't know how big she actually is. I don't think they have the measurements on her yet, but just looking at the pile of bones, it's like a pile of bones. It's like 5-10 feet across either way. It's just like a big box of just these ginormous bones that we find. And actually, the funny thing with this pile of bones is right in the middle of the pile is a wooden fence post. Big old round wooden fence post. Somebody had no idea there's fossils underneath them, and they dug this hole, and somehow, it's crazy, they pretty much missed most of the big bones, and somehow they dug a hole right in between these bones, this big pile of mashed up bones. They put this fence post in, and it's just around the bones are surrounding it.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah.
This is a ranch, isn't it?
It's a ranch,
Like they were
yes.
building fencing,
Yes.
and then this happened.
Yeah. And then
Wow.
I guess somebody discovered the first bone, and they started uncovering it, and they just needed help, needed more manpower, more teamwork to uncover more, because it's so big, the bones are so big, and there's so much of it, and it's all in one big pile that bones are laying over top of each other, and these bones are so fragile and so breakable. You have to take very, very careful of them. You got to, barely touch them at any time and carefully remove one, and it takes hours of time in the dirt.
It's, not for the faint of heart.
You will get very, very dirty. You literally just lay there in dirt and get sprayed in the face by paintbrushes.
Yeah, I
Your main-
remember Curtis, our president, talking about how you don't shower for days.
No, you don't. No, you really don't.
That was one of the less appealing things to me, but I feel like I could do it for a week at most.
Well, you practically live in the dirt, so why would you shower?
I mean,
in the
for a good
face?
cause.
It's for a good cause. And, you don't get to go on a fossil dig every day, so,
Yeah, and your main tool while digging, actually, people think you use these big tools and all these hammers and stuff.
Yeah.
No, you don't. Mm-hmm. In fact, your best tool is a paintbrush.
Really?
Yeah, because you'll use the back side, the tip, as digging.
Wow.
And the front side you use just to scrape the dirt, see what you can, so you don't dig something up and you don't see it because the dirt's covering it. You gotta, you scrape a few times and brush dirt away.
Right.
Any big tools you use are just going to break fossils like crazy.
Okay.
You can, and what they'll do a lot of times is cut the brushes down short to a very nice stub, and they'll use that to actually dig dirt with.
Wow.
That's how careful you have to be. There's no such thing as hurry up in the fossil field. You just can't. It
It's
just
very
takes a
tedious
lot of time
work. Yes.
to
Wow.
get those bones out of the ground.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. That was one of the things that I was not looking forward to because I'm so bad at detail-oriented tasks.
I mean, and the patience that would require,
Yes.
too. I'd want to see the fossil, right away.
Yes, right away. The end product. I'm a
Yeah. Well,
microwave kind of person.
Instant gratification.
Yes.
That's me.
It will definitely teach you how to be patient, because I'm not a very patient person. I don't like detail work either. But you just kind of learn to like it because you have to in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you find a fossil, and then what happens?
So the very first day or two, we were working on that fossil because they needed help getting most of it out of the ground or whatever we could. We didn't get much out because it's just too big and it just takes too long. We didn't have enough time. So a few of the days they actually let us go and look on our own and walk around, look for any kind of fossils and stuff like that. And what you're looking for mainly, you're not going to find this big old bone sticking outside of a hill.
Yeah.
You won't find that. What you find is a tiny little piece of what looks like rock. You have to know the difference. It takes a while to get to where you know the difference. What's a rock? What's a bone? It took me forever. I was like, oh, well, I found a bone. Like, that's a rock. Like, so I go to the next one. But what you find is just a little bone. And what you do is you start uncovering it, and you'll start finding where it goes. And by the time you're done, you could end up with a tiny little fragment of bone. Or you could find a whole femur or something. You could find something huge, and you never know.
Wow.
Wow. That is amazing.
That is.
So I just like imagining how they get it. Obviously, transporting it is, you laugh. So I'm just going
That's a fun subject.
I'm going to guess that's a pretty difficult part of digging.
So for one thing, we're not taking the bone straight out. If we take the bone straight out of the ground, just the bone, it'll shatter into a million pieces.
Okay.
So we have to take out the surrounding rock with the bone, because that way that rock actually keeps that bone still in place. So when we dig out these, everybody has a different way of doing it, but you want to dig maybe a good foot around, maybe a foot or two underneath, just to give it that rock is what's holding that bone together. And so you really don't want to disturb that rock if you can.
Right.
So we don't. Sometimes we won't even cover the entire bone. We'll find the ends of it. Well, you always find the end of the bone. That way you know where it ends. You know where that bone is at. Leave that rock on it and then take it out. Now, for one thing, this rock is very heavy. All right. It could be 50 pounds. It could be 300 pounds. You never know. And then we have to plaster it, which is basically a type of concrete. So we take this plaster mix with water. You get really, really dirty doing that, and the concrete sticks to your arms and hands and face, whatever, and it really hurts getting off. Just warn you ahead of time.
Good to know.
And then you will take this burlap sacks, cut them in strips, different strips according to what size it is or how much you need, and they will dip it in the plaster and wrap it around the rock. Different ways to get that hardened. Now, it takes a few hours for that plaster to harden, but then it comes hard as concrete pretty much. So then what we'll do is we'll actually flip the rock upside down with the plasters on the bottom side. So whenever you're in like a fossil lab and you're working on the bone, you're always coming from the bottom side of the bone because that's the way they transport it.
Okay.
So the goal is to put the plaster on and then dig underneath to where you're pretty close to touching each other, on the very bottom. So it's almost like, you cut the sides down, cut underneath that rock to get that little section left, and then with all the help you can get, roll the rock over, plaster the top, wait a few more hours, and then get a bunch of guys and pick this thing up and take it out.
Wow. Let's get your CrossFit
Which
workout.
they've had to use every type of vehicle you can possibly imagine to get these things out. We've even used, or I haven't personally, but they use helicopters to get these things out because, you get a rock the size of a chair, right? That thing's gonna weigh 100 pounds, maybe more.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to move. Where you're digging at is very, very rugged. Not all of it's stable ground. A lot of it's kind of like sandy. It'll kind of chalk off, especially Kansas. Kansas is very chalky. We're digging in that area. And so you got to watch your footing. Your footing could just give out on you anytime. You never know. And so you really got to be careful how you walk, carrying it. And if you drop it on somebody, they might not come out alive type thing. Some of the rocks we moved. I think one time we had, I can't remember, 6 guys on one rock. We had to carry it straight up a mountain like 50 feet, maybe 75 feet. And it took us, we had to actually dig holes in the side of the earth pretty much with our pickaxes. We dug these out and we'd lift it, we'd walk a bit, stick it inside of the hole.
Oh my goodness.
In the side of the mountain. You rest a few minutes, go up another 2 feet. And it took us, I think it's like over an hour to get 50 feet.
Oh my goodness.
It was, by the time we were done, everybody was like exhausted.
I bet.
So that's how
That's dedication.
And how heavy was it, did you say?
It was 700 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
The rock was the size of a small table.
Oh wow.
Sometimes.
And solid. And
it's solid. It's all the way through, and then you add more concrete on top of it. It just, we've used tractors for different ones. It's just amazing.
Wow.
So
That sounds very scary. Like,
it is very scary because the entire time you're walking this fossil, you realize that if you drop it,
yeah.
all those 3 or 4 days you put into making this fossil happen, getting it out of the ground, it's gone.
Right.
So you keep that in your mind while you're walking it and like, just don't trip and fall. And also if you trip and fall, you might die because they might drop it on you too. So there's a lot of pressure when you do that.
Lots of pressure. So the process that you've told us so far is basically you find the fossil, you start digging around it, and then you dig the rock out around it so that the fossil itself doesn't fall apart.
Correct,
And then you make a concrete type of cast over it with plaster and
Burlap sacks.
burlap sacks.
Yeah.
And then once you actually carry it and get it into some form of transportation, where do you take it?
So take it back to our base camp where we're staying at. Usually they'll have a place to put them, and then at some point they'll either take them to a fossil lab, and then from there on, whether they have it, whether a ministry gets it, I don't know from there on, honestly. I know some of the Kansas ones, I think David Reeves is actually working on. We actually got to bring back to our ministry here a bone that we found. Turned out I was off adventuring somewhere, and Sherry, she's our president's wife, she called me down from the mountain I was climbing, and she's like, I found something really small here. I need help digging it out. And it started out the size of a golf ball, maybe. And by the time we were done, 2 days later, we had the pubic bone to a triceratops, which I don't actually know the exact measurement. It's like 2 or 3 feet long.
Wow.
And very heavy. So it's actually a complete pubic bone. And the ranch owner actually let us have it, bring it back to the museum. So it's actually here currently at our fossil lab. We're working on it now.
Yeah,
So,
I'm so excited for that and ready to hear the final analysis.
Yeah.
We've definitely had lots of people asking questions about it as we've gone through tours in the museum. So
yeah,
I'm really looking forward to that day.
absolutely.
So beyond the physical challenges of, heavy things or maybe other things, what is maybe the most, what are some other challenges that may come with fossil digs?
Watch out for ant mounds. Found that out the hard way. Also look out for scorpions. I did not know. Okay, in Montana, there's scorpions. I didn't even think about that. So when I decided to flip a rock over to see if there's a bone underneath it, scorpion tried to kill me. I got away, but
Clearly.
don't ask Curtis the story because he will probably tell you I danced and screamed. That's not the case at all. Maybe partly, but so there's a different. Also, rattlesnakes. I almost stepped on a rattlesnake. He almost tried to kill me too. I got away again. Besides that, a lot of it is just watch your footing, because you could be walking along and you never know when you might just walk off like a, 20-foot cliff or something. It's just
Oh my gosh.
So in Montana, we're working in the Hell Creek Formation.
Yeah.
So if anyone's familiar with what that looks like, whatever, it's pretty rough and it's unbelievably amazing. It's beautiful, breathtaking, but you could get hurt out there. Just so be careful if you're out there.
All this is sounding like I'm not as enthusiastic about going on a dig as
That's
I was.
what makes it fun.
Yeah, you're
I was.
The
You had
scorpion
me till the
definitely turned me
scorpions and the rattlesnakes, and then
so I heard something about with the scorpions you use like a taser or something.
Oh my goodness.
What
Yes.
was that?
So the president, Curtis, he likes to carry a taser on him
Yeah.
for snake bites or scorpion bites, he informed me. Now, I'm kind of scared because I know he's very taser happy. And he really, really wanted to tase me. I know he did. I didn't even get stung by the scorpion, and he offered to tase me. I was like, Curtis, I don't need this. I didn't get stung. So, yes,
hey,
we
you
use
look
a taser.
like you need a good tasing today.
We use a taser. It neutralizes the venom and actually pushes it back out. I almost needed a taser a few times, but I didn't.
Okay,
thank
that's
God,
interesting.
because I'm pretty sure Curtis wouldn't do it once. He'd probably tase me till I'm out.
Okay, so Curtis's taser, rattlesnakes, scorpions.
And apparently there's grizzly bears up there. I heard that. I didn't see any. I can't verify that, but
I'm very much.
Definitely sounds dangerous.
there was other snakes too. There was another big snake. I don't know what it was. It's like 6 feet long. that we chased for a while. It was
You chased the snake?
well, yeah,
For
just
fun?
to see what it was. I was trying to get pictures of it.
Oh my goodness.
It was kind of nice.
So all the critters, with all the like, I don't know. I would say critters probably the most dangerous thing, except having a rock fall on your head would be very dangerous. So, out of all that you've described so far, maybe you tell us what you personally think is the most dangerous thing about.
Rattlesnakes.
Okay.
You don't even see them. I literally I was walking along, and my brother saved my life. There's a rattlesnake right there. I was like, oh, like right there in front of me. Oh yeah, good point. I should probably back up, shouldn't I?
Oh wow.
Also, there's no place to go because where I was walking on, somehow I found myself on the side of a cliff, more or less. So if I did evacuate quickly, I could be rolling down the hill like a penguin. So
Like a,
like a penguin. Oh, this slide, I guess. I guess not roll. That's the term I've heard.
you could test your skills
I
there.
could test.
and see.
Well, also, yeah. And watch out for cactuses.
Cacti.
Cacti?
Cacti.
that how you say it?
That's the plural.
Cactuses.
It's like saying octopuses.
It's the same thing. They get the point. There's not a difference.
Oh, okay. So, what's the single longest time you've ever spent on a fossil dig? Obviously,
Like
you've
in a
mentioned.
day?
No, you've mentioned working on fossils for days at a time. So, do you stay?
The longest I've done is about a week,
Okay.
which at the end of a week, you're pretty tired.
Yeah,
You
I
wanna go home.
imagine, and all the sun exposure and everything with the
Yeah.
added
Now,
mental.
with Kansas, it's a lot more, how do you say it, dirty. Because in Kansas, the wind blows all the time. So when you're taking a paintbrush and you're just like, I say sweeping the dirt around, guess what's going?
in your face.
In your face, yes. Yes. Everybody loved to take pictures of me at the end of the day because I was like a dirt ball. And I thought that's hilarious to take pictures of me. But after one day, you can't even run your fingers through your hair. It's impossible.
It's
It's
stiff
just
or full of dirt.
Full of dirt.
Wow.
You can't everybody's washing their hair in garden hoses and the creeks and streams and stuff. So
Looking like you got chocolate milk coming out of your head.
oh yeah. Yeah, it was insane. But also you can't see anything because if you wear glasses, they just kind of go through around your glasses into your eyes.
Okay.
So you gotta wear goggles pretty much to Kansas and a bandana so you can breathe too.
Oh yeah.
So that's a fun part of Kansas.
So, what is one of the weirdest experiences you've had on a fossil dig? I know it's just a very weird
experiences.
question. Or something unexpected, I guess,
Yeah.
that you wouldn't have thought would ever happen on a fossil dig, or something you weren't prepared for necessarily.
Something I wasn't prepared for. Ooh, that's a hard question. Thinking now. You got me quit thinking now. I did make a little discovery one time that surprised me. I wasn't expecting to find this. Me and a buddy were having a challenge who could find the most shark teeth in Kansas, just by the way, And he was finding all of them, and he wouldn't tell me where he was finding them. So I was looking for my own, and I was on my hands and knees, somehow crawling up another cliff, on my hands and knees, and literally right in front of me, in my face, was a shark's tooth. The best one of the week. It was amazing. It's so pretty. Right out of the dirt. It was from what they call the Cretoxyrhynamanteli. It's a big word, I know. It's also known as the Ginsu shark. He's about 26 feet long, 5.5 tons. One of the bigger sharks in the world. In Kansas. So that kind of just surprised me. I did not expect to find that. I was looking for, a little vertebrae or something, or a little
Yeah.
tooth, But when I saw that was definitely an experience. I was like, wow, I didn't expect this.
Yeah, I can imagine
Yes. Yeah. We talked a little bit about the worldwide flood with Curtis in Genesis, and just the evidence we see in fossils today
Yeah.
of how it confirms that God's word is true when it talks about a worldwide flood. There's only one way we would find sea creatures on mountains, and shark teeth in
in
Kansas.
Kansas, where there's
There's no oceans.
No.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, also you'll find you'll find animals that are literally blown to pieces. Like you'll find a piece here, you'll find a piece 10 feet away, and if that was slowly buried, it wouldn't make sense. Why would they be all over the place?
Right.
And if you're having rapid burial and they're just smashing down, you expect to find bones all over the place.
Yeah. So when you find all these smashed pieces, as you're saying, how do you know that they're actually smashed animal pieces, and how do you know what animal they belong to?
Very good question. So when you go home at night to our base camp, we have like a big group of guys, people who are sitting around, looking at books and their phones, looking at pictures of what we think they are. And you'll get, after a while, you'll catch on pretty quick, actually, of what bone goes to which animal, or at least the right kind or the species, right? So you'll look at that, and then you can go home and you'll look at the bone, you'll look at the whole skeleton of these animals, and you're just kind of, it's like a puzzle. You just kind of put it where it goes. Now, not on all of them, we're not completely certain. Some of them are like, yeah, that's definitely a mosasaur, or that's definitely a shark, or that's definitely, whatever it is. But not on all of them, there's some like, I don't know what that is. Now, the main fossil we find in Kansas, or one we find a lot of, is the Cephactinus. And it can get up to around 11 feet long. It's a very, very big fish. Its face looks like a bulldog face. It's kind of creepy, actually. But we find him all over in Kansas. Now, the Cephactinus is a fish fossil that was found in Kansas, pretty close to where we're actually digging at. But it is a very famous one because I don't remember what date it was when they found this, but they found a big old Cephactinus, and inside of the Cephactinus fossilized, they found a smaller fish inside of his stomach. The rib cage goes on both sides of the fish, so they know it was actually eaten and not just buried on top.
Yeah.
So again, going back to a worldwide flood and a catastrophic event where things have been buried very, very quickly, it would make more sense. It wouldn't make sense if that just stayed there in its belly for millions of years while it slowly got buried, because it just couldn't work.
Right.
But Cephactinus is what we find a lot of in there, and you can look at his vertebrae sometimes and see just how it's shaped, and you'll realize, oh, that's Cephactinus. Or you'll find a tooth, or you'll find a jaw or something, or you'll find a fin. It's like, oh, that's Cephactinus,
That's from the Cephactinus. Yeah.
Yeah,
So do you ever get to take any of the little fossils that you find home?
I have like
Have a collection?
20 bags.
Oh, really? Do you really?
I do.
Oh, wow.
I have not put them in a case like I should have, but I have like bags of fossils where you'll be walking along and you'll see a vertebrae, 10 little vertebrae. And you don't pick it up until you know it's a lone one. Because if you pick one up and leave it, you lost the spot. And there could be an entire skeleton there you don't know about.
Yeah.
So, you look around, check everything, dig around a little bit. If you don't find anything else, you take it, put it in a bag.
Okay.
And you find a lot of that because these fish are just being blown
Blown
up.
to pieces, yeah.
So you find a lot of lone little pieces you put in a bag, and so I have quite a few.
Wow. So, kind of going off the rails a little bit, just tell me like what a day looks like on a fossil dig.
Okay. I'll use Kansas for instance because that was one of the more memorable ones. We were all kind of together. Montana, we were kind of spread out, staying in a motel, stuff like that. Kansas, we got to camp out in tents.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to sleep in Kansas in tents because your tent wants to blow away all night long. So, you just kind of used to your tent laying on top of you pretty much. So you get up for sunrises. I usually try to wash my hair so I could look at least a little bit presentable before I went out, for the day. Everybody meet in a little building they had to kind of go through what we're doing today, what we want to work on, what we want to pull out of the ground, the teams, if they need radios for communication, they hand those out. If today's, hey, go out and look for some fossils, just kind of what the day's about.
Now, how far, how wide was everybody, spread out wise?
Oof. I would say the farthest we got, anywhere from a quarter mile, half mile.
Okay.
People kind of just went everywhere. You can't really see everybody at one time.
Okay.
And there's always so many dips and turns and mountains and stuff you can never see about one time. I'd say probably at the most maybe half a mile.
Okay.
It was a good distance. So poor David. Shout out to David and his cowboy boots. I gotta say this because
wow.
This guy wore cowboy boots the entire time. I'm in hiking boots and I'm slipping and sliding down cliffs, and he had to run back and forth to every person that found a fossil.
I know how slippery those are.
He did an amazing job. He absolutely amazing job. So anyways, we'll get out there. whatever form of transportation you get. Either it's a dirt bike or it's a side-by-side or a truck. Or if you're like me, they somehow just think that I'm just the one that can fit in the back of a trunk of a car and just stick me in there for the next 15 minutes.
Yeah, Drake is about almost 6 foot, so.
Yeah, and I don't fit very well in the back of trunks. I mean, it was tight, and I'm a hot, and it's, yeah, so anyways, that's where I
He
spent
just
most of
has
my
a good
time.
attitude when.
Even in Montana, I got stuck in the back of a trunk. I mean, I literally, in the back,
We
okay, in
know he won't
Montana,
complain.
Montana, off subject a little bit, Montana, I had to sit in the back seat. Now, I don't know why this car was like this, but the back seat was raised like a foot.
Okay.
So my head was half an inch from the ceiling. So the entire time I sat holding my seat for dear life, so I don't want to hit my head. Now, Curtis was driving. Curtis loves to get me. I was like watching for the bumps so I don't just, hit my head. And I know this for a fact. He purposely hit a bump just for me. And I was not expecting it. And my head just about went through the roof. I mean, that hurt. So, anyways, yeah, I find trunks to be amazing, I guess. Anyways, back to what the day looks like. So we get out to the field. Whoever's in charge will, put some teams or groups or hey, look, go look around. Or we'll start either digging on a fossil that needs to come out of the ground, or we'll start plastering. Or you could be taking or flipping a fossil or getting it out. Really just kind of depends. But a lot of it is we want to get these fossils out of the ground. We want to get these back to a lab. We want to look at these in a lab to see what they actually are, put them together. Because they're never like a perfect skeleton like you see in the books. Mm-hmm. Very, very rarely does that actually happen. Usually they're just a big bomb of bones that you just got to put together over a long time. And that's not my job. I just get them out of the field and get them back to the lab. And I'm done. Because that's way too much patience for me. I couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. So then we'll come back. Well, you just take a lunch break. Whatever you pack for that day is what you eat. If you didn't pack anything, you don't eat. Work for the rest of the day. And then we'll go back for lunch, for supper. Usually at supper, there'll be a bunch of people standing around with books in their hands and looking at bones and stuff like that. After supper, usually we go outside or we'd hang out, play games with the kids, or somewhere a guitar would appear and we start playing guitar and singing, or just time of fellowship. Then you go to bed and repeat the process.
So about how many people are on this whole fossil dig?
So my very first one in Kansas, there was I don't even remember. There's 16 people. Okay. So it was quite a bit. Montana, there was not as many people. There was still quite a few, though. I'm going to guess 10, 15. Okay. So, I guess about the same, actually. And then the last time in Kansas, it was a lot smaller just because sometimes with bigger groups, it's harder to get work done. There's things that need to be taken out. There's things that you need moved. And you just, if there's some people you can't keep a track of, it just doesn't really work that way. So.
All right.
So definitely smaller groups. 10 probably is about perfect.
Cool.
Wow. So what was a big takeaway for you from the digs? Just maybe how did it affect your perspective maybe on just, I don't know, fossils in general, getting to be out there in the field and actually working with them. That's amazing in itself, but what was a big takeaway? So at the museum, I'm a tour guide. And I tell people about fossils all the time. Mm-hmm. And I tell them what it's like to dig up a fossil, and that's cool, right? And we talk about fossils, how they're made, what they look like, But when you're actually in the field and you're actually digging on this fossil that's never been touched before, and you're the first one to bring it out and see how it actually is, what we always talk about, it's an amazing experience because it totally changes your perspective on it. Because you see firsthand what we're actually talking about. Yeah. How this all fits and how this just couldn't, when you see iron literally inside of a fish fossil. I helped the guy extract one. Iron right inside a fish fossil. That's not just a slow random chance. That's a fast process. So it increases your faith so much. Also, one thing I got to do, which I'll probably say this for another podcast, but one thing I got to do in Montana was get to help one of the guys there look inside these fossils for soft tissue
and red blood cells.
Wow.
So I'll save that topic for another podcast. But that is an amazing experience when you get to see that firsthand from the bone to what's inside it, the entire process.
Wow.
I mean, it's just increases your faith.
Yeah. Because in God's Word, we can see the genealogy records and we can get an idea of how old the earth really is.
Well, and at the same time, you're now going off of what you've seen.
Yeah.
And it's not what everybody's telling you. Oh, that's what it's like to be in a fossil field, right?
Right.
This is what it's like to pull a bone out. When you do it yourself, you no longer have man's opinion. You can have God's Word right there, and you can see it for yourself what actually happened. And that's just such a cool.
That's amazing.
That's
That
so
is
cool.
amazing. Yeah.
So, jumping off of Ashley's question of, how it's impacted you and your perspective of fossils, how do you think, going on a fossil dig, how does that impact the way you view, science and God's creation and how your relationship to science and God's creation?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, kind of like what I was telling Ashley, when you see it firsthand, and you're reading the scriptures, and you read Genesis, and you read about how these fossils are formed,
Yeah.
and you hear so many opinions on how they were formed, and everybody has a different story of how it works, and whatever it is, right? And you're out there with a Bible, and you're out there with a bone, and you just see for a fact what it looks like coming out of the ground. How we'll find plant material all over these bones, when you find, like I said, iron inside of a fish. When you find a shark tooth in Kansas, it just shows, you know what? God's Word is true. What he said happened there. You see evidence for it every time you look at a fossil. Every time you pull it out of the ground and you find these fish fossils in Kansas, and you pull out these skeletons and you look at these bones and these teeth, it definitely grows a relationship because you're out there in God's creation. You're out there firsthand experiencing what he put there for us to find.
Yeah.
Yes.
I believe.
Yeah. That is.
Yeah, the evidence definitely speaks for itself. And yeah, it's just amazing to know when we do read God's Word, just it holds up.
Yeah,
It stands on
absolutely.
its own 2 feet. Like nothing we can do to prove it, quote unquote, it proves itself.
Absolutely.
Just one last question for you, Drake. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, and we really do appreciate all you do, like in the museum. You're an excellent tour guide. Everybody just loves Drake. They want him as their tour guide when they come in. He makes it so enjoyable and fun and memorable for the people coming in. And I just want to end with, what would you tell young people who may want to get in on the creation ministry movement, just getting involved? Like, what does that look like? Do you have any advice for them? Like, how would you go about doing that, and encouragement for them too?
It's a good question. I would say for any young person who has an interest in God's Word, in creation, or just science itself, the more you study God's Word and you study creation, what he made, how he made it, it for one thing strengthens your faith. I mean, just looking at science alone, it proves the Bible. So you're looking at science and you're saying, wow, this is how it works. There's no way this couldn't have been done by a creator. There's no way this took millions of years. And so all those things that people are telling you in the world, society today, you get a block to it because you know that can't happen. There's no way that can happen. Because your faith is firmly set in what God's showing us, right? But also increasing your faith. The more you study, the more you learn. And I honestly don't know much about creation myself. I'm still learning. But the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And the more you learn, the more you realize how great our God is.
Amen.
Absolutely.
I mean, and just how, I can't describe the feeling you get when you look at the way these things are created and how fossils are just so amazingly formed. finding fish fossils inside fish, fish giving birth, fish eating each other, dinosaurs fighting. There's just no way that could happen without a creator who put it out there for us to increase our faith. Mm-hmm. So I'd say any young person listening to this, get all the way in because you're never going to regret it. You're going to grow in your walk. And if you go on a dinosaur dig, you're going to get addicted to it. Just telling you. You're not going to want to stop.
It definitely sounds fun.
You all
Yes.
you all need to do
Minus
it
the
because at least just do it once. If you don't like it, you'll do it again. But just do it once because I almost guarantee you, you're going to love it and it's going to increase your faith.
Absolutely. Okay, that wraps up the second episode for the Creation Matters podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We are so excited to have our guest, Drake Ford, on with us today.
And hey, if you guys are interested in learning more about our ministry and what we do, or even interested in coming to visit us, you can visit our website at creationexperiencemuseum.com or call 417-561-0750.
We'll see you next time, guys.
See ya.